the firefighting authorities have said that they cannot fight this blaze. It's too big for them to actually fight. So what they're doing is concentrating on evacuating people and making sure that everyone is safe.
And so really, in terms of getting it under control, they've got to wait to put fire breaks in and wait for it to burn itself out.
To burn itself out, or when more help arrives, because obviously Spain is very well set up to deal with these fires, but this is just on such a scale that the authorities have said that there's just no way that we can combat a fire on this scale.
Now, the peninsula of Cape Ferret in southwestern France has been evacuated after wildfires rage across the area. Tens of thousands of people have been ordered to leave by boat or along the single road to the mainland. Meanwhile, Spain has declared a national emergency after wildfires forced the evacuation of around 10,000 people near Madrid. Soraya Fetty is a resident of southwest France near Cap Ferret and global campaigns coordinator at a climate organisation 350.org. She told me the fear that everyone in the region is facing at the moment.
All of us in the region have at least one friend, one family member living in the city. So we get news from them how scared they are, how unsure they are of when or even if they will find their houses, their beloved lands when they come back to the city. Honestly, this is becoming too recurring. We barely had the time to recover from the past fires that happened a few years ago. And obviously, right now, the priority is for everyone to be safe, to be away from the fires and to actually end this fire. But we also know that this is something that has happened in the past and that will probably continue to happen if the conditions that are making these fires more and more frequent and bigger are not being treated. This can't turn into our new normal.
Well, that was Soraya Fetty, who is a resident of southwest France near Cap Ferret. Let's go now to Simon Hunter, who's the Times' reporter in Madrid. Simon, good afternoon.
Hi, Cathy.
It seems like a pretty desperate situation, seeing what's unfolding on our TV screens. And Spain's declared a national emergency.
That's correct, yeah. I mean, this is the worst fire that we've seen in Madrid on record. The reason for declaring a national emergency is because the prevention of fires and the tackling of fires is a competency that falls to the regions. So the reason that the national emergency has been declared is because that means that the national government can now step in. Its powers now supersede those of the regions to be able to better coordinate resources to try and tackle these wildfires. The problem with what we're seeing is we started with 3 separate wildfires in the Madrid region, and just to clarify where we're talking about, exactly where we're talking about, it's about 100 kilometers west from where I am now in the center of Madrid. This is on the edge of the Madrid region. And those 3 fires that were burning in the Madrid region have now joined together, making one huge blaze. And the concern now at this point in the afternoon is that this massive fire that started as 3 fires now is one huge fire, may actually join with the fire that's burning in neighbouring Avila. Avila is the province, one of the provinces that borders the Madrid region, and the fear now is that we may see an even bigger fire for the authorities to try and deal with.
And what are you seeing right outside your door, and what does the air quality feel like and look like?
Well, it's funny you should say that. Yesterday I was in the centre of Madrid. I was right in the centre in the Puerta del Sol. Anyone that's been to Madrid will know that's literally the geographical centre of Spain. And looking to the west, where the royal palace is, I could see the smoke rising up into the sky. Now it's blowing north, but there's an extraordinary satellite image of just how much smoke is being produced by these fires. But most of it is going north. So I mean, here in the city, there's no concern. I mean, but it is visible from other parts. I have a friend up in the north of who lives up in the north of Madrid, the region, and she just sent me a picture out of her window, and you can see the smoke. So I mean, but this has been the situation we've had for the last couple of weeks. Last week I drove my boys up to Asturias to go camping for a vacation. As we went through the north of Madrid, we passed by another fire, and the smoke was drifting across, and the smell is, it's an awful smell, and it is scary, obviously, but much more scary for the people who are being evacuated and who are at risk of losing their homes.
And how many now have been evacuated or are going to be?
So far in the Madrid region, there's been 19,000 people who've been evacuated, and in neighbouring Avila, it's about 1,500 people.
Yeah.
But obviously and in fact, it's interesting. There's some people who are being told to evacuate, and some people are being told to stay put. We had that awful fire a couple of weeks ago in Almeria, which claimed the lives of I think it was about 13 people. And some of those deaths were reportedly caused by people either taking the wrong evacuation route or not staying put. So depending on where people are, the advice is either stay where you are or an orderly evacuation.
Yeah, listen to what you've been told. A lot of information coming through that arsonists may be responsible for some of these blazes, which just seems absolutely devastating to hear, doesn't it?
Yes, and this is a regular thing that you hear with these awful wildfires in Spain. The reporting I've seen so far in the Spanish media suggests that there have been some arrests, but rather than arsonists, it was people using heavy machinery, agricultural machinery, in areas where they shouldn't have been using it. Because we've got this situation. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but we had lots and lots of rain in the winter and in the spring, but that actually causes wildfires in the summer because the rain means that more vegetation grows. Then we get to the heat waves of the spring and the summer, and we've already had several heat waves in Spain this summer. It dries out all of that vegetation and just creates these kind of tinderbox conditions. And today, today the problem is that the conditions in terms of the high temperatures and the wind is just like the worst case scenario basically for a fire like this. And in fact, the firefighting authorities have said that they cannot fight this blaze. It's too big for them to actually fight. So what they're doing is concentrating on evacuating people and making sure that everyone is safe. And
so really, in terms of getting it under control, they've got to wait to put fire breaks in and wait for it to burn itself out.
To burn itself out, or when more help arrives, because obviously Spain is very well set up to deal with these fires, but this is just on such a scale that the authorities have said that there's just no way that we can combat a fire on this scale. What's interesting is that Spain and France have both requested assistance from the European Union to help them deal with this, and the EU is already sending 3 or 4 firefighting planes to Spain, I believe, to help try and combat the fire.
It was interesting. I was reading, I think in the Times a few weeks ago, about how Greece, which has obviously been a wildfire hotspot perennially, has been trialling new technology, satellite imagery, so that they can zap the fires as quickly as possible. Is there any sense of, how Spain is tackling these? This is an annual event, of course, that is changing, that there's a use of new tech, new equipment, and there's a hope there that this might stop being an annual occurrence?
I haven't seen any information to suggest that there's a change in approach in Spain. Unfortunately, this always becomes a political football today, and unbelievably, in the midst of all of this horror, some of the politicians are already kind of exchanging barbs about the fires because, as I said, it's a regional competency. So in the Madrid region, for example, we have a conservative leader, the Popular Party Premier Isabel Díaz Ayuso, and she is often very publicly at odds with the central administration, which is run by the Socialist Party. She's no fan of the Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez. So it becomes a political football with the regions blaming the national government for not doing enough, and then the national government saying, well, sorry, but this is a regional power. It's your responsibility to be looking after, to be preventing and to be fighting fires when they occur. If this continues, because every year it seems to be getting worse, if this continues, then yes, obviously the public are going to be clamouring for more to be done, for more prevention, to avoid this becoming a yearly event.
Simon Hunter, thanks very much for putting us in the picture. It's a depressing story, but we're important to cover, of course. That is a Times reporter in Madrid.